This is a love letter to the senses. Enjoyment from what you hear, touch, taste, smell, and see is very pleasurable. Pleasure from the senses is something that's talked about in a very reductionistic way these days. The general chatter focuses on it being some sort of dopamine hit, just something to keep you distracted by. I understand the need to look at things from this lens, especially with the advent of social media and the internet and wrapping our lives to the point that some live solely for that hit. But that is not real pleasure, or it's a lower form of pleasure. Since this channel is about anime, manga, novels, etc., I will be giving examples of pleasure from the senses based on these viewing experiences from such mediums. But obviously there are various types of pleasurable experiences ranging from social engagement, sex, having a good meal, all of that stuff. I think the feeling from viewing or reading something should be given the focus it deserves, especially given how intrinsic this action is to my life and to many others such as yourselves. In the same way we ask, is this relationship good, great, excellent, not okay? Or we look at a debate and we ask, was that a healthy debate? Was it unhealthy? Was it an excellent showcase of arguments, or was it just not informative? These questions have the assumption laced into that there are standards and levels to things. So I can't help but ask the question, why is pleasure always talked about in the way of just getting a hit in the same way a person is salivating for the next fix, or some sort of hedonism with no bounds? Instead as something that is cultivated with its own levels and metrics, something worthy of inquiry. When watching a film, for example, not for the sake of learning something new or some sort of analysis, but for the sake of enjoyment, there are things that I can do to stimulate my senses more. If I choose something that has the aesthetics that I enjoy, then my enjoyment for that film will be enhanced. For me, that would be a certain darker detective-like vibe. I've noticed that I enjoy myself more if I watch something that has that kind of aesthetic. It really draws me in. I've also noticed I enjoy disconnected plots that all come together in a unique way. I thrive in a certain amount of ambiguity. When I find those shows alongside the aesthetic I have, then I enjoy myself even more. All these little things put me in a flow with what I'm consuming. There's an alignment within myself and the book or show that I'm engaging with. External things can enhance one's experience too. Like I know when I'm tired and I watch something, my enjoyment is less. So I put my best energy forth. I know that dimming the lights will enhance things too. I know that taking a deep breath before watching anything helps me because I'm letting go of anything that was troubling my mind. There are all these things that I can do to augment my experience, and it is effort. It is not a quick dopamine hit. Just like with anything worth doing, there's a certain amount of efforting that's required. And this efforting is also enjoyable in of itself. And because of all of this, I get to boost my experience, my enjoyment, my pleasure. And so when I look back at how I previously appreciated media, now I think, wow, I thought I was relishing the viewing experience, but man, there's so much more. Ritualizing my life in this way has allowed me to find unique shows that I would remember. I want to have a time capsule of the truly great films, manga, etc. of my life. When they are made for me experientially, it gets embedded into my brain. I don't want to forget these experiences that matter to me, despite how fleeting these sensations and emotions can be when watching or reading something. The act of ritualizing forges neurons in my brain, but it's not just that. All of my senses are alive when I experience art in this way. By focusing on aesthetics, the sense of sight is appreciated. By finding a show with a specific vibe and soundtrack, the sensation of hearing is appreciated. If I want to enhance the touch sensation, then holding onto a book provides that greater feeling rather than reading on a Kindle. Appreciating my senses is fundamental to experience. It is essential. The senses are an avenue to enjoyment, and by the same token, the rational mind finds a way to move away from them. Trying to find shows or novels based on ratings and online discourse can get in the way. It's too mental. My attention is too spread out, too influenced. Ratings provide me a certain faith that if I put my time into something, that at the very least, it's going to be a good time. It's my silly need for certainty. But at the same time, I want to go against them. I want to go in the opposite direction so as to find something unique, to move away from what is seen and popular. Unfortunately, I have found that this is just another side of the same coin. I'm still in relationship with the other. I'm just pushing away in this example. I'm not against this overall, and I'm not against recommendations from friends. It's just hearing about someone else's experience is only so valuable, and pushing away from what's popular is only so useful. All of this leaves me with subpar experiences. For myself, that was more of a minor issue, but this was the biggest one. I have a mental identification of only liking certain things. Like, for example, I'll only like a couple of mediums like anime, manga, or TV shows, and I don't want to branch out. And even then, I really wanted to focus on just anime and manga because that's what I grew up with. Because moving away felt like an abandonment of the medium of something I love. It feels like I'm giving up because there's nothing I could find that enticed me in the future. It hurt my identity to do that. It feels like abandoning my past in a certain way. But also understanding that despite the feeling causing me pain, this feeling is based on abstractions and not my own senses. Branching out to other mediums provides an avenue to find something amazing that I just never mentally considered. I'm not sullying my identity, I'm expanding it. Ratings are abstractions from an aggregation on people's thoughts on things. Recommendations are abstractions based on someone else's experience. Identifying with a medium is abstracting the self into a category. While it's a useful process if it is used what it's actually meant for, when it comes to experience from the senses, it is merely noise, like a fly buzzing around, ultimately a distraction from the real thing. Now I want to add, I appreciate stories that are mentally stimulating, where I get to puzzle things out. Like I said before, I enjoy detective shows. That is not what this is about. See, being mentally stimulated by what you're watching could be a requirement for you to truly enjoy something. That's perfectly fine because the way information enters one's brain can delight the senses. A buzzing feeling in the mind that feels good. I'm not warning against mental activations that satisfy. All I'm warning against is not abandoning the senses and choices derived from one's own senses. And really, it's a warning to myself. So instead of using recommendations or ratings, or especially for me, one's identity, I've learned to fully trust my own bodily feeling or sensation when engaging with something. Because deep down, these senses are mine, and therefore they are unique, and it's up to me to explore them to their limits, to create standards for myself of how I want my enjoyment of my life to be. I'm not promoting some sort of hedonism. What I'm arguing for, if this appeals to you and is resonating within you and isn't just the ramblings of some fool, is to have taste. Not good taste, as it's so commonly put on social media, which is a mental construction. It's not about defining what I like and dislike in a constricting way. Taste. My own tastes. Taste based on sensations. If I'm able to find people who like the same thing I do, I'll be happy, and even if it's rare, I'll appreciate it. But they will only be found by trusting my sensing abilities, which is ultimately an act of solitude. The 5 senses are a gateway to that. So if I really had something to scream out into the world, it would be this. Trust your love for aesthetics. Define what aesthetics you have found you like. Test that out in the world. What pulls you in, what pulls you out. And then when you find it, be willing to let go of that identification, because even the act of defining it is a way we close ourselves out from something that could enhance our senses even more. Like if I just think I like the detective aesthetic now, but then I find a show that isn't that, but all my senses are activated by it, then I need to be willing to abandon who I thought I was and to include that as well. So a new identity is going to show up, one that is even more vast but with the same density. I'm not letting go of everything that I have learnt when it comes to my senses in that moment. I'm evolving. It's a process of evolution. It's a climbing process of reconstituting taste. It's a specific identity that evolves as my relationship with my senses evolve. It doesn't just exist in my head, in online discourse, or from things that I have read. All in all, there is such a thing as personal standards for pleasure and enjoyment. There is such a thing as developing one's ability to enjoy life. It's not shallow. I really do believe that we were born to experience this world through the one body we have. What I've chosen to fully dive into are the senses.